Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're continuing our study of 1 Peter. We're in chapter 2. We're going to be reading verses 13 through 17. Peter has just told us who Jesus is and then who we are because of Jesus. And now he's going to tell us what our relationships are supposed to be like because we are who we are through Jesus and who he is. Verse 13, submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to a king as the one in authority, or to governors as sent by him, for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do right. For such is the will of God, that by doing right you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Act as free men, but do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as bond slaves of God. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. There are so many connections to the book of Romans, and Peter mentions in this letter that he's read Paul's writings and that they're hard, that I just put two and two together, and I think he's reading the book of Romans because he's in Rome. The text is there for him to see. The whole notion of the right place of government and our relationship to it is right out of Romans chapter 13, verses 1 and following. Using our freedom, but not as an excuse to have our own way, is right out of Romans chapter 14 and 15. You know, it's just there's just so many direct connections to Paul's writing in the book of Romans and Paul's themes, and rightfully so, because it immediately addresses the present moment. Submit. Paul makes the distinction clear in Ephesians and Colossians, other places, the difference between submission and obedience. We submit to each other. We submit to human authority, but we obey God. Submission means to give deference to. It literally means to follow leadership, to respect authority. The person who is in charge of being responsible, of ordering things, of putting things in order. We yield to that. Obedience means literally to hear the voice, to listen to God's orders and to take those orders, to be obedient to those orders. We submit to every human institution, but we obey God. We submit to human institutions. This is the will of God, that by doing right, we may silence ignorant and foolish men. He's saying there are people out there who are uninformed and just foolish in the way they live their lives, and they're going to say falsehoods about you. Don't let that be true. You have to prove them wrong, not by yelling louder, but by the way you live, so that when people hear the accusations they make, they know they're not true, because they know who you are, and they know you're a good citizen, and that you're selfless, and that you put others first, and that you obey the laws, and you pay your taxes. They know all these things to be true, and therefore they will not listen when someone says something otherwise. Act as free men, but do not use your freedom as a covering for evil. Paul says in Romans chapter 14, I know and am convinced that an idol is nothing. I know this. I'm free to eat food sacrificed to idols if I want to, because I know it doesn't mean anything. An idol is nothing. However, I'm not going to let food cause my brother to stumble. I defer to my brother. We submit to each other. And we care for each other. We are free because of Jesus Christ, but we don't use that freedom in any way for our own selves, but we use it to further the kingdom of God. Use it as bondslaves of God. I love verse 17. Honor all men. We pay respect and honor, timē, that which is expected, to every human being. We respect every human being as the honor due to someone who is created by and loved by God, simply because they are a human being. Love the brotherhood. That agape love, that's primarily for each other. Love the brotherhood. Paul will say on multiple occasions, preferring one another. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Phobos. Fear. Reverence. You pay reverence to God as God, but you don't fear the emperor because he's not God. You honor him, you pay him respect, but you don't give him the reverence that you give God. And he's going to let us know later on because we're not afraid of him in any way. We fear God, we reverence God, but we have no fear of their intimidation. He's going to say in chapter 3 later on. Fear God, honor the king. Okay. We're going to pick up with verse 18 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.